Don't come to the wedding. You and your kids just make things awkward. That was the text that ended something I didn't even know was breaking. No warning. No phone call. Just 10 words from my mother, cold, clipped, and final, glowing on my screen while I stood in line at the pharmacy, clutching a prescription I could barely afford. My sister reacted with a laughing emoji. I stared at it until the screen dimmed, then typed back, "Then you won't need my card for the venue." They kept laughing in the family chat like I was the punchline to some inside joke. None of them realized I was holding the only thing they couldn't afford to lose, the contract in my name. That's when everything began to unravel. I'm Clara Wells, 35, single mom of 2, and an accountant at a mid-size pharmaceutical firm. My days blur between Excel sheets and lunchboxes, between trying to keep my head above water and pretending I'm fine. For years, I believed that helping my family was the same thing as loving them. Turns out, I was just financing my own disappearance. My mother, Elaine, had a gift. She could turn guilt into a form of currency, and I was her most reliable bank. Since I was 16, she'd say, "You're the responsible one, Clara," every time she needed something. When my younger sisters, Tessa and Maddie, went off to college, I co-signed their student loans. When our stepfather, Glenn, lost his job, I paid for groceries, utilities, even Mom's salon visits, because she promised to pay me back when things get better. They never did. Still, I kept showing up. Because that's what good daughters do, right? When Tessa got engaged last spring, I was the first to congratulate her, and somehow the first to be volunteered to handle the bills. She wanted a glass-roofed lakeside venue, a place so picturesque it looked like it existed just for Instagram. The kind of wedding that said fairy tale in every filtered frame. I paid the deposits, booked the caterer, even handled the floral consultations she was too busy to attend. Every receipt had my name on it. $3,000 for the venue deposit. $1,200 for catering. $600 for flowers. Another few hundred for extras. All on my credit card. Each time I asked about splitting costs, Mom would sigh like I'd just ruined the mood. Family sticks together, Clara. And I believed her. Right up until that text. I don't know what hurt more, being disinvited from my sister's wedding, or realizing they'd never really wanted me there. I wasn't part of their celebration. I was their safety net. That night, after putting the kids to bed, I sat in the dark with my phone, scrolling through months of messages, receipts, and reminders. Every transaction was another reminder that love in my family came with an invoice. I wasn't angry, not yet. Just hollow. The next morning, the group chat was still alive, more laughing emojis, memes about drama queens ruining the vibe. It was like watching strangers wear the faces of people I once loved. I muted the chat. That tiny click felt louder than shouting. Later that evening, Glenn called. His voice was low, almost guilty. "You don't deserve this, Clara. You've done more than anyone." "I'm fine," I lied. "No, you're not," he said, and hung up softly. After the call, I opened my laptop and pulled up the wedding contract, the one with my signature at the bottom. My name sat there in bold print, primary contact Clara Wells. It hit me like a slow, quiet revelation. All of it, the venue, the payments, the reservations, they weren't Tessa's. They were mine. I hovered over the draft email I'd started weeks ago when the venue coordinator had asked if any details might change. I could still hear her cheerful voice. "You can reach out anytime if you need to make adjustments." My fingers moved before I could second-guess myself. "Can I cancel the booking if needed?" I typed. I hit send. The reply came the next morning. "Yes. Since you're the primary on file, you can cancel at any time." For the first time in months, my pulse felt steady. They thought I'd stay quiet, that I'd keep paying, keep apologizing, keep earning my way into a family that had already decided I didn't belong. But what they didn't know is that the game had just changed. They had built their perfect little world on my back. And now, I finally understood how to make it fall. The morning after I sent that email, the world felt sharper, like someone had turned up the contrast on everything. The air, the light, the quiet hum of the refrigerator. My coffee tasted stronger. For once, I didn't wake up feeling like I owed anyone an apology. By noon, I'd gotten a confirmation from the venue. Your booking has been successfully canceled. A full refund will be processed to the card on file within 3 to 5 business days. I read it twice, then once more, just to feel it sink in. 3 to 5 business days, and $3,000 would come back to me. My name, my money, my decision. I didn't plan revenge. Not really. It was more like a correction, a long overdue balancing of ledgers. The same way I'd fix a misaligned column at work or trace a missing cent through spreadsheets until the numbers made sense again. Only this time, the equation was my family. When I picked up my kids, Noah and Elsie, from school that afternoon, Noah asked if I was feeling better. I smiled and said yes. He looked surprised. Maybe because for the first time in months, it was true. That night, I stayed off my phone. No doom scrolling through the family chat, no reading the unending stream of passive-aggressive posts from Tessa about fake people who pretend to care. I just sat on the couch with my kids, watching a movie, eating popcorn from a big red bowl that left everyone's fingers buttery. When Elsie fell asleep on my lap halfway through, I realized how peaceful silence could be when no one expected something from you. The next morning, my phone rang. Mom. I let it go to voicemail. Then she called again. And again. By the fourth call, curiosity won. I answered. Clara, she said, her voice tight and trembling. What did you do? I didn't even pretend to be confused. What are you talking about? The venue called Tessa this morning. They said the wedding's off. They said you canceled it. There was that tone again, the one that made me feel like a child who'd spilled something expensive. I did, I said simply. The silence that followed could have cut glass. You can't do that, she whispered. You can't just. I can, I said, calm as the sky after rain. My name's on the contract. My card paid for it. So yes, I can. Then came the anger, sharp, hissing. Do you have any idea what you've done? People are flying in. The caterer. Not my problem, I said, surprising even myself. You made it clear I wasn't welcome. I'm just taking care of my own responsibilities now. She sputtered something about selfishness, about betrayal, about, how dare you. I let her talk until her words turned into sobs and static, and then I hung up. My hands were shaking, but not from guilt. It was adrenaline. Freedom has a pulse, and it was pounding in my ears. That afternoon, I blocked their group chat. I even deleted their numbers, except for Glenn's. He didn't deserve to be collateral damage. A few hours later, he texted. You did the right thing. I'm sorry they made you carry it for so long. I stared at that message for a long time before replying. Thank you. I just can't do it anymore. That night, Tessa posted a long, tearful rant online about betrayal within family, full of vague quotes and screenshots cropped just enough to make her the victim. People I hadn't spoken to in years were commenting things like, you deserve better, girl, and some people never change. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. For once, I wasn't performing damage control. 3 days later, the refund hit my account. $3,000, a number I hadn't seen sitting there in years. I stared at it until my vision blurred. It wasn't about the money. It was about the space it created. The breathing room. For the first time, I started thinking about what I could build for myself, not for them, not for appearances, but for us. Me, Noah, and Elsie. A smaller apartment maybe, closer to work. A weekend trip. A life that didn't orbit anyone else's expectations. But the calm didn't last. The next week, a letter arrived in my mailbox, no return address, just my name written in a familiar, careful hand. Inside was a single sheet of paper and a check. The handwriting was my mother's. You've humiliated this family. Consider this repayment for what you think we owe. I hope you can sleep at night knowing what you've done to your sister's future. The check was for $500, not even a fraction of what I'd spent. But what made my stomach twist wasn't the amount. It was the last line written in smaller, almost trembling script. Don't contact us again. Ever. I folded the paper back into the envelope and slid it into the drawer. I didn't cry. I didn't even get angry. I just sat there, staring out the window, realizing that for the first time in my life, I was officially an orphan, not by fate, but by choice. And yet, beneath the ache, there was something else, relief. Because losing them meant I finally had space to find myself. Or at least, I thought I did. Until 2 weeks later, when a man in a gray suit showed up at my office holding a clipboard and a sealed envelope. "Ms. Wells," he asked. "Yes, you've been served." When the man handed me that envelope, I didn't even feel fear at first. Just confusion. The kind that fogs your mind and slows your breath, like your brain refuses to process what's happening. He was polite, almost apologetic. "It's from the county clerk's office," he said, as if that explained anything. Then he was gone. Just me, a beige hallway, and an envelope that suddenly weighed more than bricks. I stood there for a full minute before I tore it open. Inside was a summons. My sister, Tessa Morgan, was suing me for intentional interference with contractual relations and emotional distress. In plain English, she was taking me to court for canceling her wedding. My hands trembled so badly I had to sit down on the nearest bench. The words blurred together: damages, compensation, negligence. They read like a language I once knew but had forgotten. By the time I got home that night, my stomach was in knots. The kids were drawing on the kitchen floor, oblivious. I smiled at them, forced and hollow, while my mind spun in circles. A lawsuit. From my own sister. I poured myself a glass of water, but it tasted like dust. Then my phone buzzed, an unknown number. I shouldn't have answered. "You thought you could just walk away?" Her voice. "Tessa, do you have any idea how humiliated I am? People think I made it up. The venue told everyone the bride's sister canceled the event. They're calling me a fraud." "I didn't tell them anything," I said quietly. "You didn't have to. You left a trail. You ruined my life because you're jealous, Clara." "Jealous?" I laughed, sharp and bitter. "You mean because Mom and Dad chose you every time? Because you hate when anyone else is happy?" She hung up before I could say anything else. I stood there in the kitchen, holding my phone like it was a live grenade. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying every moment that led to this, every favor I'd said yes to, every boundary I'd failed to set, every time I'd chosen peace over honesty. This wasn't new, it was just the final stage of a cycle that had been eating me alive for years. By morning, I called Glenn. He picked up immediately. "I heard," he said softly. "Tessa posted the papers online." My heart sank. Of course she did. "Look, I know a lawyer. She's good. I'll send you her number. Don't talk to anyone else about this, okay?" "Thanks," I whispered. That afternoon, I met the lawyer, a woman named Karen with sharp eyes and a calm that felt like armor. She read through the paperwork without flinching. "They don't have a strong case," she said finally. "The contract was under your name. The payment came from your account. That gives you full legal authority to cancel. So I'll be fine?" "Legally, yes. But emotionally?" She tilted her head. "They're going to try to break you, Clara. People like this don't want money, they want you to hurt." Her words hit harder than I expected. In the weeks that followed, my world became a courtroom in miniature. Depositions, affidavits, phone calls that started formal and ended cruel. Tessa showed up to the preliminary hearing in white, the color of a bride. I don't know if it was irony or performance. Probably both. She refused to look at me until the judge asked her a direct question. When she did, her eyes were cold. Like she was staring through me, not at me. "She humiliated me," Tessa said, voice trembling just enough to sound sincere. "I trusted her with everything, and she destroyed it because she couldn't stand to see me happy." I wanted to scream. To remind her of the months I'd spent saving her from herself, paying deposits, dealing with vendors, soothing her meltdowns over napkin colors. But instead, I just sat there, hands clenched in my lap, forcing myself to breathe. When it was my turn, I told the truth. Plain, steady, maybe too calm. I said I canceled the venue because I couldn't keep funding something I was excluded from. Because I was tired of being the family's invisible accountant, the one who cleaned up everyone's mess and still got blamed for the stains. The judge listened, impassive. No one gasped. No dramatic outburst. Just silence. When the hearing ended, Tessa brushed past me in the hallway. Her perfume, the same one Mom used to wear, made my chest ache. "You think this is over?" she whispered. "It's just beginning." Then she walked away, heels clicking like a countdown. That night, I opened my front door to find a small box on the step. No return address again. Inside was a wedding invitation, my sister's, torn cleanly in half. Beneath it, a note written in looping handwriting that wasn't hers. You should have stayed quiet. I stared at it for a long time, my throat dry, every instinct screaming that this was no longer about a wedding or even family. It was about punishment. I locked every door in the house, closed the blinds, and sat by the window until morning light bled through the curtains. Because for the first time, I wasn't sure who my sister had become or how far she was willing to go. It's strange how quiet the world becomes when you finally stop fighting to be heard. For weeks after that box appeared on my doorstep, I lived like someone waiting for an aftershock, tense, alert, every sound in the hallway a possible warning. The court case dragged on. Motions, counterclaims, procedural delays. My lawyer said it was all noise, a tactic to exhaust me. It worked. My hair started falling out in clumps, sleep became a stranger, and I began double-locking doors out of habit. But beneath the fear, there was something steadier growing, a kind of defiance. I had spent my whole life apologizing to people who mistook my kindness for weakness. Not anymore. The final hearing came on a gray Thursday morning, the kind of day that never really wakes up. I wore black, not for mourning, but for closure. Tessa arrived late, surrounded by her friends, all of them whispering as if we were in a theater and I was the villain on stage. I didn't look at her. Not once. The judge read through the documents, his voice dry and precise. Given the evidence presented, the court finds insufficient grounds for damages. The defendant acted within her legal rights. It was over in less than 10 minutes. Tessa didn't cry. She didn't shout. She just stood there, frozen, as if the verdict hadn't computed yet. When our eyes finally met, there was no rage, just disbelief. As if she'd built an entire identity on my guilt, and now it had nowhere to live. Outside the courthouse, the wind was cold but clean. I breathed it in like medicine. Karen patted my shoulder. You're free, Clara. Go live your life. Freedom. The word sounded foreign, like something I'd borrowed and never returned. That night, I took the kids to the pier. We ate ice cream even though it was freezing. Noah dared Elsie to touch the water, and she squealed when it bit her fingers. Their laughter echoed against the dark water, and for the first time in months, it didn't sound like background noise, it sounded like home. When we got back, there was another envelope on the doormat. I almost didn't pick it up. But habit, or maybe curiosity, made me do it. Inside was a single page. No threats this time, no insults. Just handwriting I knew better than my own. I didn't start this to destroy you. I just didn't know how to stop needing someone to blame. You were always stronger than me, and I hated you for it. Mom would have been proud of you. She just never knew how to say it. I'm leaving town. Don't look for me. No signature. But I didn't need one. I stood there for a long time, letter trembling in my hands. Relief didn't come all at once. It seeped in, quiet and slow, like light through fog. I burned the note in the kitchen sink. Watched the paper curl into black ash until only a few white edges remained. Then I opened the window and let the smoke out. That night, I slept without dreams. In the morning, I made pancakes for the kids. Noah joked about how bad I was at flipping them, and Elsie insisted hers looked like a heart. We laughed until the house felt lighter, like it had been holding its breath for too long. I didn't check social media. Didn't open old messages. I deleted every folder with her name. The only thing I kept was the refund receipt, not as a trophy, but as proof that sometimes the right decision doesn't feel good right away. Weeks passed. The gray days softened. I got a raise at work, moved us into a small apartment near the park. The kids filled it with drawings and noise, and I filled it with silence, the kind that doesn't hurt anymore. Sometimes, when I walk past the pier, I think about her. About all of them. The family I lost, the peace I gained, the cost of finally choosing myself. And maybe that's what healing really is, not forgetting, not forgiving, but learning to exist without needing an apology that will never come. I don't know where Tessa went. Maybe she started over. Maybe she didn't. But I've stopped wondering. Because for the first time, I'm not the one left waiting. The other day, Elsie asked me, Mom, are we happy now? I thought about it for a second. Then I smiled. Yeah, I said softly. We're getting there. I looked out the window, sunlight breaking through the clouds, waves glittering in the distance, and I realized something simple, something I'd spent years running from. Peace doesn't arrive with forgiveness. It begins the moment you stop handing your power to people who only know how to use it against you. And for me, that moment had finally come.